Hey guys, it's Olivie Blake, and this is me not writing. I don't have a whole lot to say. We don't have any questions to answer this week because I think I answered every question that anyone has ever had 2 weekends ago when we did the Ask Me Anything on Discord and the Galloween slumber party event on Tumblr, which was, event is sort of like, a bigger word than it actually was, but thank you so much to everybody who joined me. It was really fun. We talked about crushes and baking, and it really did feel like a slumber party, so thank you very much to everyone who stopped by, and thank you to the Department of Fandom for inviting me to do the AMA on Discord. There were sort of like, because it was live the whole weekend, there were definitely like periods of excitement and then periods of more like just me chatting with like whoever happened to be there at the time. So we had a very wonderful discussion about AOL Instant Messenger, which was great. In terms of what people mostly asked me, it's a lot of questions I've answered on here before. I think one of the main questions was like, how did you plan this story, or how did you plan this story? To which unfortunately the answer is I didn't plan any of my stories, because the way that I write fan fiction is just I sit down and write the chapter. I write one chapter a week basically, and I don't do any planning. So unfortunately, I didn't have any very good answers for that. But you guys already know that if you have questions about outlining or pre-writing and stuff, I already have answers to those things. So yeah, I don't need to tell you that. But yeah, it was very interesting to sort of relive. People asked me a lot of questions about like Ride or Die, how to win friends and influence people, stuff that was written, a couple of years ago. So it was really interesting for me to kind of go back and like live in those headspaces again. It was funny also how many stories I had like forgotten about or hadn't thought about in a long time. Answered actually a lot of questions about how to win friends and influence people, which was really fun because that kind of predates me doing these videos. So I didn't really, I've never really been able to go into detail about why I chose certain characters that I did, how I felt about the Pepperell brothers. So yeah, it was sort of a behind the scenes of stuff specifically about stories that I'd never gotten to talk about before, so that was really cool. As you might know, the American elections have been called. Joe Biden has won. This is very exciting. Kamala Harris, very exciting. Really cool to see her up there. Really cool to see what she stands for, that it's not just about being the only woman in a place of power, but about bringing other women with you. I think that's really the thing that has... There's been some weird takes about feminism with the appointment of Amy Coney Barrett, which is, just because she is a woman doesn't mean it's a feminist act. Because, ideally the concept of feminism is that you bring other women up with you and you increase their freedoms and you give them autonomy and empower them. And that is, as far as we know, not what Amy Coney Barrett is trying to do, but very much is what Kamala Harris is trying to do. So yeah, regardless of your feelings on Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, it was really, really great to hear some positivity and, the concept of unifying and the idea that people are inherently have value and that we are going to treat the people of this country as though they have value, which is great. Nice to know that democracy and rule of law and like the idea that human beings are, human. Fantastic. I know there's been a lot of tweets circulating about like, okay, Joe Biden is still not perfect. Kamala Harris is still not perfect. This is of course true. No politician is ever perfect. The idea is never that you elect the person that believes everything you believe and then you just let them do their thing. No, activism is still very important. There's still more that we have to do, especially with the Senate very much on the line. We still need to mobilize. But that being said, you can feel joy in this moment. Activism does require joy. It requires rest. It cannot be 100% worry all the time. We still have things we need to think about and worry about. And yes, we still need to push Joe Biden a little bit more on climate change, on, any number of things. We'll see how he handles the sort of fallout from the Black Lives Matter movement and the things that the Black community has asked. And the Native American community, both of which were instrumental in electing him. So yeah, there's no reason to believe that it stops here. We just get to take a rest for now. So definitely like ignore the nonsense that's kind of floating around on Twitter. You can choose what to do with that. But I think at this point, you need to take some energy back. We have spent a lot of our energy just worrying about what might happen with this election and worrying about what the next 4 years were going to look like. And it is okay to take a breath and take a break. Just know that, starting January 20th, earlier than that, if you live in Georgia or if you want to participate, Georgia has a runoff, and right now the Senate is 48 Republicans to 48 Democrats, so a very crucial seat. So if you are able to help with the Georgia election in any way, now is the time to do it, but definitely take the day to be happy, be excited, because we are not devolving into fascism. I've definitely also seen a lot of stuff about feeling empathy for Trump voters, and I think the best response to that I've seen is we already do feel empathy for them. We already want them to have healthcare. We voted for them to have healthcare. We voted for them to be, respected under the administration. We have already we've expressed our interest in people having, a higher minimum wage and having a universal basic income, in green and sustainable policies that will benefit Trump voters as well. So I don't really think it's necessary to be empathetic to their feelings during this time of an election loss. But, things will be difficult. Things are always difficult, but this is a big win. So I think we get to have that. This month's spell read is The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton. I unfortunately have this very large book that has 3 of her books in it, so it is difficult to read. That's not important for you. That's a fact for me. I really want to talk about the book Too Much by Rachel Verona Coate. It has a lot to do with, women's health and reproductive policies. It was something that I really wanted to, and social constraints, and I really wanted to read that following up our Mexican Gothic discussion and the idea of voicelessness, and especially female voicelessness, but I didn't think I could stand to have that conversation if the election went literally any other direction. So instead we're reading The House of Mirth, which is by Edith Wharton, who was the first woman to win a Pulitzer for The Age of Innocence, which was written after The House of Mirth. But The Age of Innocence is... I have some struggles with The Age of Innocence because it's one of those where it's sort of an infidelity love story, which is I didn't want to spend all our time talking about that. So instead we're going to talk about a woman's social disgrace. So I've mentioned that this is kind of old-timey Gossip Girl. And before you bring it up, yes, I see that Bridgerton is going to be a series, and yes, I'm going to watch it. I've never read the books that it's based on, but Julia Quinn is a super famous historical romance author who does all the quotes for Tessa Dare's book. So that is how I know who she is. And I'm excited for Bridgerton. But anyway, just before anybody brings that up, because that has definitely been floating around in the world of people who enjoy period romances, which I certainly am. I talked a lot last weekend, about the new Emma adaptation, which I definitely thought was going to be a useless adaptation. There are so many Emmas, I could not imagine why someone was let's do it again. But it is really, really good. I really, really enjoy it. So it's on HBO right now, and I'm sure it'll circulate its way to the other streaming networks soon. And I encourage you to watch it if you have access to it. I have completely lost my train of thought. But yeah, I talked a lot about period films. Oh, I also talked about Rebecca. I cannot do my Rebecca spiel again. It's very long, but I have written it down, and you can read it if you want to. I was very disappointed with the film adaptation of that. Let's not do that again. The House of Mirth. So one of the things I brought up when I originally mentioned this is that Lily Bart, the main character, reminds me very strongly of the character Serena van der Woodsen. So all of Edith Wharton's books, she was an insider in the, she grew up in the Gilded Age of New York. She was wealthy. She comes from money. She married into more money. But she I think, felt like she had an outside point of view because she was not beautiful. This was something, the introduction was written by Jonathan Franzen, who focused a lot on how not beautiful Edith Wharton was, which I'm not sure if that would have been my decision, but so be it. The House of Mirth is about Lily Bart, a very, very beautiful girl she was born into this world, but then she lost her fortune. And she has sort of a predilection for scandal, and not all of it is her fault, which I feel like is very, she felt very strongly. Let me just say that in Re Gossip Girl. I definitely preferred the character of Blair Waldorf. I thought she was more interesting. I also think that part of that, though, is that the actress Leighton Meester just could carry storylines better, and so the writers really focused on her. Whereas the character of Serena van der Woodsen was just kind of like, she's sort of like a free spirit. She doesn't necessarily enjoy being part of this world, but she's just such a spectacle that anytime she does anything, people look at what she does. And that is definitely the case with Lily Bart. People made a lot of assumptions about Serena van der Woodsen because she was beautiful and because she was rich, and like, people are going to envy those things. So yeah, that was like a very easy connection to make. Also, I'm hoping the rest of you read this book and we can talk about Lawrence Selden, who is the love interest. And he's sort of a Dan Humphrey in that he doesn't belong to this group of people because he has a job. He has a job, he's a lawyer, and he doesn't make a huge amount of money, and he doesn't come from money, but for some reason he's fairly ingratiated in this part of society. And he definitely views Lily Bart as a spectacle, and he's in love with her, but it's sort of like, would he love her if she weren't a spectacle? Would he love her so much if she weren't such a focus of this world that he's not really part of? This was always my question with Dan Humphrey, is like, does he love her because she has access to this world he'll never belong to or be accepted by? Or does he love her for real reasons? And then we have some, some side characters that are there. I would argue there's a Chuck Bass in this story, at least certainly a season 1 Chuck Bass. Judy Traynor is a little bit of a Blair Waldorf in that she Lily Bart is her best friend, but she's pretty quick to turn on Lily. Part of that is Lily's fault, but so be it. So I would really love to talk about this book. I really enjoyed, just also the writing is just very good. If you're into Jane Austen, which, again, the period piece thing has been coming up a lot, I really enjoyed it. I hope you will too, and we'll join in this discussion because I could really talk for days about Lawrence Selden. I'm not really sure how I feel about him, and I'm really looking forward to talking about how other people feel about him. I think that is pretty much everything. There is a film adaptation of The House of Mirth, which I will probably try and watch. There's also one of The Age of Innocence, which I will also probably try and watch. I'm in a very period piece kind of mood, so here we are, November. So anyway, I think that is everything now. We have pretty much covered everything that I intended to cover, and I've already talked for at least 10 minutes longer than I thought I was going to. So yeah, I'll be back next week. And then after that, I'm moving. Yay! I'm not moving very far. I'm just moving to an apartment that has an additional room. So we won't have to contend with all these lighting problems, hopefully, because I am mostly dealing with a tree that's outside my window, and it blocks a lot of the light part of the year, and then part of the year they trim it, and then there's too much light. But I will have an office in our new apartment, so that's exciting, and I will probably need some time to put that together. So we will skip a week, probably Thanksgiving week. Definite shout out to all the educators out there because Mr. Blake was very stressed this week and still had to teach, whereas I did absolutely nothing. Truly nothing. I read the exact same Cat Sebastian novel 3 times. It was a very comfortable and safe place for me to be in while I waited for the election to be called. I ate a lot of chicken strips. Oh, one of the questions I did get asked was why I started this video series, which I realize it's been a really long time now, so if you weren't here right at the beginning, you probably don't know why I do this, which is that it was a very hot summer day, and I was dealing with some carpal tunnel, which I have during the summer when things get swell up. And I had all these asks on Tumblr that I needed to answer. This was 2 years ago, so things were a little bit more hopping on Tumblr at the time. And my keyboard was too hot. I couldn't even touch it. And my husband was like, how about you just answer these things in a video? Hence, Olivie Blake is not writing in order to save her hands. In case you've been wondering about that for some time or not, I don't know. There's your answer. Anyway, this has been me, Olivie Blake, not writing, and I'll see you next week.